Ready?
Well,
Okay. So first, tell us your name, title, how long you've been with the company, and in which city.
Sure. So my name is Josie Mock. I'm the new CFO for commercial development within Skanska USA. I'm based in New York City out of the Empire State Building, and I have been here for just about 3 months.
Okay. What are your observations so far?
Observations that the team is very engaged and friendly and open to learning a lot about other groups, everything about their market, learning about my role and my experience. And, it's a group that's very dynamic and fun and really involved in what they do and really have a passion for, development and finding new opportunities to grow in their markets.
Good. Have you been to the market through the other offices?
I have. I've been there almost every market twice already.
It's a busy 3 months. You've been
It has
only going to
been.
the other offices.
It has
Okay.
been.
So tell me about your background and what you were doing before you came to Skanska.
Sure. So I previously was with a firm called Forest Ratner, based out of Brooklyn, New York, which grew into being a part of Forest City Realty Trust, which is a publicly traded real estate development company throughout the U.S. I was based exclusively out of New York and in Brooklyn, and for 16 years, I wore a lot of hats, everything from hotel asset management, which was in my early years for 2 hotels out of New York that the company owned, and that kind of grew into underwriting all the development deals that were taking place in New York over the past 10, 12 years. And by the time I left just a few months ago, after 16 years, I grew into a role called Senior Vice President of Financial Planning and Analysis, where I basically underwrote all of the investments that the company had in development activities in both office, residential, and retail as well as their New York operating portfolio of mostly office and residential, which at one given time was up to 30 properties that they owned and managed and leased.
Okay, great. So I have a question here. You tell me if it applies to you or not. So the question is, at what point in your life did this industry first appeal to you?
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like when you started at Forest City, it was doing something a little bit different
Yes.
because it was in
Hotels.
with their hotel property.
Correct.
So as it started to curve around, like when did this kind of the development piece of it, as it relates
Sure.
to Skanska development, become of interest to you? And
Sure.
why?
So hotels, obviously, that was my field of undergraduate study, and so that's where my background was leading into Forest City. But the fact that it was a subset of a larger company in terms of the types of buildings that they built, developed, and owned and operated, it was basically, overseeing the hotel assets, but being alongside other professionals who were developing all other kinds of assets that was interesting to me. And a lot of the kind of key fundamentals were sort of different but the same in the sense that you're still, taking on the development risk, picking the best sites, taking the construction risk, and, kind of what we call from, instead of lease up, but some sort of stabilization process. And in hotels, it's a little bit different because you're renting every night, and whereas residential and office leasing and retail leasing is more annual or multi-year. But so being able to translate kind of this sort of hotel background into a wider range of real estate products within the same company that I was already working at was kind of how I decided to kind of broaden my horizons beyond, kind of just the hotel asset class within real estate.
And at the point that you decided to come to Skanska, generally what was appealing to you? What were your decision factors when you were looking at making moves? 16 years at one company is a long time. So
It is.
I'm sure you had a lot of factors going through when you were looking at going somewhere new. What was attractive to you about Skanska?
So definitely the fact that they are involved in many markets. They're great markets. Again, I worked in purely an office within Forest City that was dedicated to just purely the New York region. So the ability to kind of see a company, how it's operating in its 4 current markets, as well as expanding, into LA as our most recent new market, was interesting to me, having been based at a company that was national but focusing on just New York. And honestly, Forest City, it's always been public, but having recently undergone transformation into a REIT, their appetite for development was kind of I guess, curtailed or trying to be limited in the sense that they already had a lot of development opportunities that were taking longer and already, had invested heavily in, and so it was harder to find areas for growth. Whereas Skanska CD, I found that, opening LA, always on the hunt for new sites, the fact that they were constantly, selling and looking for new opportunities was something that was a lot more interesting in the sense of ever changing, as opposed to kind of always committed to the same long-term sites in the same markets. So that's what really appealed to me most is being able to see a lot of different markets and also a lot of assets within those markets. And also the role itself. I mean, being able to lead the financial and accounting for this group was definitely appealing to me.
Okay. Okay. What has surprised you or is different than what you might have expected when you came here on day one versus 3 months in now? What has surprised you about the Skanska? Anything, the team, the work?
Sure. So, I always, of course, knew, obviously, Skanska is an internationally, based company and global in nature. And having worked at Forest City, which I thought was a good-sized, mid-sized U.S. company, I thought I worked for a big company, but now I realize I didn't. And this Skanska is huge in nature in terms of, the values and all-encompassing procedures and policies. And also with that comes not just, rules to follow, but also just kind of cross-discipline, cross-border opportunities to grow career-wise and professionally. So I thought that was, a pleasant surprise. So I always knew that it was a huge company, but really until I joined, I didn't realize the scale of how large of resources there are within the company.
What excites you most about your job?
The ability to take what I've learned at my prior company and one or two before that and try to impart some of what I've experienced into in traditional development company into what I envision as, kind of a development group that's sort of on its round two, second generation, where they've established themselves and gotten to a critical size in terms of number of employees and number of markets and staff size to kind of institute more checks and balances, not procedures in a bad way, but kind of health checks and trying to help the project teams make better investments.
So, first 90 days in, what have you been up to? So it sounds like you've been flying a lot.
Right.
What have you been doing for the first few months in, kind of to get your feet wet and get your arms
Sure.
around what you're doing?
So I had the fortune of overlapping for 1 month with my predecessor, Axel Wingard, so that was good. And so the first few weeks I was taking kind of the tour of the markets and getting to know all of the great teams that are involved in finding these opportunities and building them and leasing them and executing on the sale of these. So I met, going through all the offices, meeting all of the professionals, touring the assets that are either we control or under construction, as well as the opportunities that we have in each of these markets to acquire. I have now visited each office almost twice. I've been involved in senior leadership meetings to discuss kind of potential growth and kind of governance issues that are affecting all of us, I believe, globally at Skanska. And now I'm embarking on my first crack at the quarterly forecasting process that myself and my team are responsible for every quarter.
Okay, Nick, I'm coming up with my last question, so jump in if you have other ones that you want me to skip around to on the other lists, but I think that it's going really well. So.
Okay.
So we've asked everyone this, and the perspective will vary based on kind of what part of the practice you sit in and how long you've been here, but what did the next 10 years for USA commercial development look like to you?
So for me personally, it seems an opportunity to diversify in terms of the markets. As I mentioned before, we just opened up an LA office, an opportunity to diversify in terms of the asset types. It seems that we've mostly focused on office, but already we've made some foray into residential, and potentially, who knows, maybe it's hotels, mixed use, multi-phase. That's something that is interesting in that, building kind of opportunities for the future, and instead of just looking at single parcel sites, an opportunity that we can, concentrate on a particular area, for a number of years. So that's what I look forward most to seeing, if that comes to fruition, and planning the next 10 years of growth for the group.
Nick?
Anything you hope to accomplish in this role? Is there, or to rephrase too, is there anything in particular you want the folks on the team to know about you, or how you kind of see moving forward as the CFO for the group?
Think about that one for a second. In terms of, how I'd like people to see me is not so much as someone to come in with, another set of rules and kind of guidelines that we have to follow, or more deadlines, but as someone that can help the project teams further their objectives in terms of, whether it's structuring deals, acquisitions, finding new pursuits, and kind of partnering with them on how to help their teams grow, their markets grow, and all of CDS grow. And as many are learning by my style, when I ask a lot of questions, I'm not really trying to poke blame or trying, especially being new, it's really trying to understand kind of how we got here and how we can, keep moving forward in a better path.
Just one other thing.
Sure.
From an LA growth perspective,
Right.
How involved are you with the expansion with LA? And are there things there that you think would be interesting in getting that market off the ground that the rest of the team would be interested in hearing about?
Okay.
You could say no.
Yeah.
More
So
educational for me,
not
so-
really. So I mean, no, not yet, just because
Okay.
Claire's been
Yeah.
gone. Although oddly enough, she just called me on Friday with just doing a gut check
Okay.
on an opportunity. I mean,
Okay.
I anticipate that I could assist in the sense of if there are questions about deal points on how to structure something that that fit better, or in the Skanska way in terms of our accounting model, financial model, investment model, I could help Claire in those aspects. To be honest, at the same time though, she's obviously consulting with Rob,
Yeah.
so it's kind of hesitated on that one.
Okay.
I'm good. Others, I think that was great.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm good transitioning
We're
now.
going to switch gears
Yeah.
to the fun one, which does not have